I want to welcome you to Dream Chasers Radio with me, your host, Yaya Diamond. What's up, people? It's a great day. I am back. Oh, yes. How you doing? Oh my gosh. I have an author on the show today. I love Paris. I mean, okay, that's like the perfect title because I absolutely love Paris. I love Paris. I do. I do. But this is not just about loving Paris. This is a little bit different. And I'm so excited to have our guest on the show today. Robert Sastrom's on the show today, and I want to welcome him there. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem. So how did you know and how did you fill your time with knowing that you were going to be an author, or did you know?
No, well, I don't consider myself an author as much as I do a filmmaker. I've been making films since I was about 7 years old,
Oh,
and
cool.
I wrote several screenplays and trying to get them made independently. I've made one feature-length independent film that was released. It's called Outmates. It's a play on the word inmates. It's two guys who are on a road cleaning crew. They're kind of wrongfully accused. It's an action comedy. They're wrongfully accused, and they accidentally escape from prison 2 days before their parole date. And so they're trying to get back to the prison. It's kind of it's kind of silly because usually they're trying to get away from the
Get
prison.
out.
These two guys, these two
Trying to get
idiots are
back
trying to
in
get back to prison to
without
explain that
being without
they
being noticed.
yeah,
Is
right.
oh my gosh.
That film was made under $21,000. It was kind of my calling card film. And while I was filming that one, I had three ideas for three different films, one about a kidnapping, one about Vietnam, and one about John F. Kennedy. And at one point I was listening to music in my car, trying to, just come up with ideas. And I heard the Frank Sinatra song, I Love Paris. And in the middle of that 1.5 minute song, these three movie ideas came together as one. And that was the kind of genesis of the Isle of Paris story. And I combined all three of those stories together with, characters that some are fictionalized, but most of them in the story are real, based off of, incidences in my own life. So I turned it into a screenplay, expecting to turn it into a film. And, it was hard to find financing because I realized, this is going to be an expensive movie having to do with Vietnam, going to Dallas, Dealey Plaza, John F. Kennedy, and all of that. And so under the coaxing of my mother and my family and friends, they said, well, turn it into a book and see if you can get it published. And so over the course of the next several years, I turned the screenplay into long form prose under the inspiration of Ernest Hemingway and Raymond Chandler and Michael Crichton and Clive Cussler, and this was the end product of that. So
Wow. Wow. Do you, I mean, I love the fact that you have a movie out, and I would love to get my hands on it so that we can go ahead and feature it on our Roku channel. Absolutely love the fact. What was the difference though between actually changing it from a screenplay to a book?
oh well, with the screenplay, the film is, if it was, when we make it, it will be 2 hours plus. And so you approximate, that if you have 110-page screenplay, you're going to have about a 2 hour movie. And so that's pretty easy to, write 110 pages, relatively speaking. He enters, he looks like such and such, very briefly, and then you give the lines and brief descriptions so that the production designer or the special effects coordinator, they can then, say, okay, I know what he means. Now we can, now we have to build this. It's very, very vague, a screenplay, relatively speaking, to a book. So when I had the screenplay in Microsoft, I went in and I'm like, okay, so he gets up. So now I have to design the morning. What kind of day is it? What are the clouds
Oh,
like? And I try not to get too with the similes and allegorical, but sometimes, when you're writing it's my first, I've written one how-to book before, so this is my first action adventure book. And so there's this one point at the beginning of the story in the screenplay when he says the robins are chirping, the robins are moving around. He's talking to his granddaughter, meaning that, with this old codger farmer, that means rains are coming later on. This is in northern Texas. And whenever the robins are out gathering for their nest, the rains are going to come.
mm.
And so I knew that was already in the screenplay. But in the book, you can kind of really paint a beautiful picture of what that morning is like and create this picturesque environment for the town of Paris, Texas, because most people, when they look at the title, they'll think it's Paris, France.
Right.
It's Paris, Texas.
Hmm.
And later on in the first act of the story, when we realize that our main character Templeton has been drafted to Vietnam, this is 1967, it begins to rain outside. And so the grandfather was right. And now we painted that very beautiful morning, everything was good. Now at the end of the day, it's pretty bleak, it's raining, it's muddy outside. And so that was fun to turn that into a simple descriptive form for the film and create it in prose.
Mm.
And so a lot of Raymond Chandler inspiration, a lot of Ernest Hemingway. Those are the guys that my grandmother, taught me about when I was little. So it stuck in my head.
Right. That is so cool though. I mean, okay, so do you ever plan to take I Love Paris back to screenplay so that you can actually produce it? I mean, if you got the money, if you had the money, would you literally put it on the big screen?
Oh, well, yes. I mean, I'm in the middle of that actually right now. I have several producers that are working on the project, and when you're working on independent film and you're not going to major studios, it's sometimes hard to find all of the financing because you have to find private investors that see the potential and the viability of the novel and the book. And when you have a screenplay and a no name like myself, it's hard to get that out there. But since we've published the book and now it is out there and people are buying it, and they went to a bookstore in Atlanta and they sold it out, now I can take that credibility to these producers. And right now I'm talking to Errol Sadler, and I've got Karen Rizzo, several other producers. I'm not, some of them haven't given me their specific permission to use their names, so I'll keep them at bay for now. But the stunt coordinator for the film is Vic Armstrong, and even though he's probably not a household name, he was the stunt coordinator for all of the Indiana Jones films.
Yeah, I know.
So that's cool, and we're excited about
That is
that.
cool.
Our production designer, he's Jordan Crockett. He lives in Atlanta, and he worked on Avengers Endgame, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. So I mean, when we're on the phone or we're doing a Zoom call, he's so excited. He said, I read your story and I turned it over. I said, I've never done this before. He said, I turned it over and I read it again. He goes, I didn't finish it till the next day. It took me 2 days, but in 2 days I read the story twice. And he told himself, this is my next movie. So
Oh,
so
sweet. That
we're
is
we're
so
excited
sweet.
about it. So that's why, in tandem with the book coming out and the interest in our financiers and our producers actually, getting it going, we have permission to film in Dealey Plaza, which is where the assassination sadly took place. And this is the 60th anniversary of that, 1963, November 22nd. That'll be the 60th anniversary of that. So, I mean, historically speaking, it's really the perfect time to film it.
Yeah. Yeah, historically speaking, but it's still a sad incident. Nobody wants to see that again, but at the same time, it's like, he had a great cause. He had a great cause. He was a great president. And you know, unfortunately, that's what had happened. And I'm kind of sad to not see his whole presidency be, out and displayed for everybody to see and critique, because I'm sure it would have been amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
You're absolutely right. I mean, he was only president for 3 years, and
Yeah.
he won over Nixon. It was by a small margin, and the amount of history that happened, the Cuban Missile Crisis that happened, the civil rights movement that was happening at that time, and he undoubtedly, I mean, almost for sure, would have been reelected.
Yeah, he would have had a second term.
Yes, absolutely. And so that's what the book, the crux of the book, or the MacGuffin, as Alfred Hitchcock would call it, it's the crux that holds the narrative up that everybody's after. Sometimes it's a microfilm or whatever, sometimes it's secret papers from the government, but in this story, it has to do with the aftermath of the John F. Kennedy assassination. And what's really neat about that is that even though our story takes place it starts in 67, and our main character, he's kind of railroaded into Vietnam because he's like 26, and most the people that are being drafted are like 18. So he's wondering why is he drafted? He's gonna marry his love of his life, and they're gonna be happy in Paris, Texas. And it's his whole life gets turned upside down when he's kind of railroaded into going to Vietnam and becomes a helicopter pilot. And his best friend there that he befriends, his name is Sidney Traggett, and he's this awesome. He's like, how do I explain him? He's picture Anthony Mackie, okay, but even cooler. and they hit it off, and they're best buds. And they go into a skirmish, which is something that actually happened in 1968. It was they call it the Pinkville Massacre, where some rogue American soldiers went into this village where they thought it was a Viet Cong stronghold, and it wasn't. And there was only two guys that tried to stop it, two American soldiers that tried to stop it, said these guys are unarmed, there's women and children, we you can't do this. So only two guys in the story that tried to stop it, and that's Sidney Traggett and Templeton Hawks.
Mm.
And it ends very badly.
Yeah, don't tell.
This is just in the first part of the story, so it's like I'll try not to. I don't want to ruin too much of it. Basically,
don't ruin it. No, because we got the movie to look forward to now.
Right.
Oh,
well, he ends up. This guy, Sidney Traggett, his dad is the police lieutenant of the Dallas homicide precinct in 1972. So what ends up happening, without giving too much away, is that when Templeton Hawks does get back to the States, when he does get back, and he realizes that the love of his life has had a daughter, which you could read all this on the back of the book. That's the whole premise. She's got this daughter, and on the very same day of his return from Vietnam, after being in prison for 4 years in a Viet Cong prison, the little girl goes missing on the very same day. So that's like, he's like, that's weird. Why would it happen today of all days? He didn't know she had a kid. He didn't know anything about it. And so that's really where the story begins, is the search for the little girl, and what in the world does she have to do with the secrets of the John F. Kennedy assassination? How does it have anything to do with that? And so finding her leads him down this path, and he doesn't know this, but to Lieutenant Roscoe Traggett, the dad of his best friend in Vietnam. And so that's where the movie really begins, or the story really begins, because it's this cat and mouse game between Roscoe Traggett, the Dallas police precinct lieutenant, and then Templeton Hawks. And so we were going to have Clarence Gilliard play that part. Unfortunately, he passed away. So we're actually talking to a couple of other, I was thinking somebody like Eddie Murphy would be good in that part, somebody like that, it's tough, but he's got a wit about him. There's this cat and mouse game between him and Templeton, and it's going to be fun.
That's going to be fun. Oh my gosh. Congratulations on everything. I am telling you what, that is just amazing. Wow. So, okay. So people can get the book on Amazon, right?
Yes. Amazon and
now, yeah, and we're going to have all that information in the description box so that you guys can go ahead and get that easy. But I want to ask you a big question. And the biggest question is this your last book?
I actually have almost finished another one, a second one. But
a book or a screenplay? Because this is different. Like, books are different, and then screenplays are different.
It was a screenplay first, much like I Love Paris. And then I reformatted it, or I always expected to turn it into a book, but the screenplay really becomes a helpful outline for me, because some people write a 60-page outline anyway for a book. So I write about, when my screenplays they run long, 130, 140, 50 pages, but they go very fast. So people look at a 110-page screenplay and they're like, okay, we want 100 pages. That's what studios want, because that means less than 2 hours. And they want shorter running times, because more showings during the day for the theaters in syndication and more money. But my screenplays, they're like a Howard Hawks film. If you remember that movie, His Girl Friday, It's an hour and a half movie, and the script is 226 pages.
Oh,
Just
wow.
because they're talking so fast, they're overlapping
Right.
dialogue. It was Howard Hawks' trademark, and no. But to answer, that was my long way of saying no. It wasn't. It's definitely not my last one. I have a second one that's almost finished.
That is so cool. So you have fallen in love with not only screenplays, but writing books.
Yeah, I have. This is technically my second, and then I got the third one. The first one was a book about filmmaking and the classic days of Hollywood. So not a novel by any means, not a fictionalized novel. But this one to me, even more than the one I'm working on now, which is about World War II, similar action adventure story. And I don't want to give too much. I don't want to say anything about that one because that one's kind of. I got some stuff in that one that I've never seen in a book before. So we'll just try to keep it under
Yeah,
the hat. But
definitely.
this one's very personal to me because the the crux of the story, the history in the story is all very real. I didn't make it up, and the dates are in there, and the articles are in there. People can look it up and check out their own resources to see, did this really happen? Did this really happen? If there's a news clipping in the book, that news clipping is real.
Mm,
And so and what I did is I took characters and moments of my and scenarios from my actual life, and I put them in 1972, which is where the most of the story takes place, because there's a flash forward from the beginning, 67 to 72. And so I took my real life characters, my real life family, and I put them there in this time, and then wrote the true history around that.
right.
So the love story at the beginning, that's about me and the girl that I would eventually marry.
Aw.
And the little girl in the story is about the little girl that we would eventually have. And so I Love Paris is really I Love Addie, because my daughter's name is Addie.
Oh, that is so good. That is just so sweet. Oh, okay. You got me. But that is wonderful. That is wonderful. Wow. Wow. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. And I can't wait to see the movie. I'm a movie
Me
girl.
neither.
I'm a movie girl. I'm a movie buff. I'm like, yeah, I saw that already. Next. I am ready. I am ready. But I'm hoping that you will send me your first movie so we can put it up on our Roku
A-
station. And
Absolutely, yeah.
that would be amazing because we get really good views on that. And also, I have a sister station, Golden Rule Media, that would love to put that up as well. So we can have that up as well.
I
So I
will.
want to thank you so much for being on the show. We're going to have all of the information about I Love Paris in the description box below so that people can actually go there and read that book before it becomes a movie. That way you can compare.
There you go.
Compare. Yes, definitely have to compare. Thank you so much, Robert.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Anytime. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to dare to be different. And until next time, guys, bye.